Well, good morning. Hope you're having a great week so far. It's early in the week, so there's no reason to be having a bad week already. It is Monday morning. It's 8:52 a.m. here in Oklahoma City, local time. I forget what the date is. I think today is the 20th. Don't quote me on that, though. I think it's September 20th. Monday morning, September 20th, 8:52 a.m. I'm at the Volvo dealer. There is their sign. Volvo and Mack are kind of like the same thing these days. I don't know when that happened, but Volvo and Mack. This is a Volvo Mack dealership. And I was going to make a video earlier in the week, but then I found out that I was going to have to come over here and spend all damn day at the dealer. So I was like, you know what? I ain't going to have shit to do all day Monday. So I'll just wait and that'll give me something to do on Monday. So what has happened since the last video? So in the last video, I talked to you about all the crap that I needed to get done while I was here at home, and everything is so incredibly delayed because of all the supply chain issues. There's just the supply chain issues are affecting everything. Go to the grocery store, and some of the grocery stores have a lot of empty shelves. I do online ordering. I haven't been inside a grocery store in probably over a year. I just do online orders. But even on online orders, you go through there and like half the shit's out of stock. It sucks. But yeah, every one of the mechanics I've talked to is just, that's the main thing that they talk about is supply chain issues and part shortages. It's taking them forever to get jobs done because they're sitting around waiting on parts. So I had to wait almost 3 weeks to get an appointment to get my truck worked on at the place where I pay to park, and it's the name of the place is called Big Rig Products. It's in Southeast Oklahoma City. And what the hell is a Freightliner doing rolling in here? Freightliner coming in the entrance right there. Yeah, I could be wrong. It might have been a Volvo. Let me do a double take here. I'm like 99% sure that's a fucking Freightliner. I think you're at the wrong dealer, bro. So it's sprinkling rain right now. I don't think it's going to be bad enough to make me get out of the weather. But yeah, I had to sit around and wait for like 3 weeks. Big Rig Products is where I get all my shit worked on. It's where I pay to park. It's where I get my truck worked on. It's where I get my APU worked on. It's where I get everything worked on. Every PM I've ever had done on this truck was done at Big Rig Products. Well, initially, they told me it'd be a week, maybe a week and a half to get me an appointment. And then that turned into 2 weeks. And then that turned into 2.5 weeks. And then I got bumped another day. So my very first appointment they scheduled me for was Wednesday of last week, which I think was the 15th, September 15th. And they called me Tuesday and said, hey, we have a truck that we thought we were going to get done with today, but we're going to have to work on it again tomorrow, so we need to bump you a day. So they bumped me from Wednesday to Thursday. So I showed up at like 5 a.m. Thursday morning because I don't like driving in traffic, so I got there real early, and there was some shit that I needed to do in the truck, so I was like, I'll use, the 2 or 3 hours before they open up, because they don't open up till 8 a.m. I was like, I'll use the 2 or 3 hours to move the truck from my parking spot over to the shop and to do some things in the truck that I want to do, clean up and stuff like that. So I did. And then I was sitting there parked at the shop, and I know that they know who the hell I am. I know they recognize my ass, and they saw me parked right there, so I didn't bother to go in and check in with them. And then, like 9:30 in the morning, like an hour and a half after they open, they pull another truck into the bay that's not me. I'm like, whoa, buddy, what the fuck? So I walked over there, and immediately, you know, they said, yeah, they didn't get all the oil filters they were supposed to. They only got 2 of the oil filter. I don't think they had any. They forgot to buy my damn oil filters for the PM on the truck. So they didn't have any of the oil filters. And they decided to go ahead and pull in another truck ahead of me because they were waiting on the oil filters. Well, what this truck was having done is they were having one of those RV air conditioning and heating units installed on the top. It was a 2020 Peterbilt with a flat roof, slightly curved roof, and they were putting an RV HVAC system on the top of it. The guy showed me his bill. It was a little over $2,300 total. It was the brand of the HVAC unit was Houghton or something like that. Houghton. I think it was made in South Africa. But it was a 13,500 BTU system. I remember that. And it pulls up to 58 amps to start. Now, whenever it's running, it only uses about 1,500 watts. But it can pull up to 58 amps when starting, when the compressor kicks on. Not just when you turn it on, but whenever it turns the compressor on, it can pull 58 amps. So you can't hook it up to a regular inverter. They were hooking it up to the Carrier APU generator, which is a 6,000 watt generator. But yeah, so they didn't have the filters at all. Then when they finally brought the filters in, it was like 11 a.m. and they didn't bring in all the filters, so they had to send them back out to get the rest of the filters, and they didn't get those back out until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they didn't, what was it? It was, it took Trey. Trey is the mechanic that works on my truck and my APU. It took Trey. He was also the one installing that HVAC system on that truck. And it took him a lot longer than normal. They said it normally takes a half a day to install one of those, and it took Trey the entire day. He didn't finish installing it until about 4:30 in the afternoon, and they leave at 5. So they went ahead and had one of the other mechanics start the preventative maintenance, the oil change and lube on the main engine of my truck at around 4 o'clock. And they were going to have Trey just come over and do the APU PM as soon as he finished with the other. Well, ran into some snags. They didn't have all the fuel filters, but they were able to use basically a generic fuel filter. They had some fuel filters in stock that they were able to use. So they were able to completely do the PM on my truck. And then one other thing is, the guy asked me, he said, hey, do you want me to replace your air filter? And I was like, which air filter are you talking about? And he was talking about the one on the engine intake. And I was like, I don't know, do we need to replace it? How often is it supposed to be replaced? And he said, well, if you're in a really dusty area, like you're working in the oil fields or something, you should probably do it every time you get an oil change. And if you're just doing normal over-the-road stuff, every other oil change. I was like, well, have you guys been replacing it? And he was like, I don't know. I said, well, you're the only place I've ever gotten a PM done on this truck, and you've never asked me if you wanted me to replace that, so I don't know if you guys have been replacing it or not. And he said, well, let's take it out and look at it. Well, he took it out, And written on the side of the air filter, it had the mileage, 267,000 miles. My truck has 530,000 miles on it. So that air filter has not been replaced in a couple 100,000 miles. The previous owners of this truck did not do proper maintenance on the truck. I'm starting to find out, like, as I'm doing routine maintenance on the truck, I'm starting to find out, like, they really just completely half-assed the maintenance on the truck. And that's the problem with people that know that they're not going to keep the trucks long term, is they'll skip over, you know, that 200, 300,000 mile maintenance stuff. They'll skip over a whole bunch of stuff because they're not really worried about the lifespan of the truck. They just need it to last the 3 or 5 years, however long it is that they plan on keeping the truck. And then they can pass all those problems off to somebody else. You know, they can avoid, you know, a lot of this routine maintenance that you're supposed to do every 100, 200,000 miles. You know, it's $500 to $1,000. It's starting to rain harder. Let me pause this. Actually, you know what? Sweet, I'm out of the rain right here. I'm underneath a rock dump trailer, like a rock hauler. So, you know, they can save money by not doing that maintenance, and by skipping out on that maintenance, it basically will cause bigger problems down the road. It's worth it to go ahead and do the maintenance, but if you don't do the maintenance, it's not like the truck's going to break down as soon as you know, if there's a maintenance that's supposed to be done every 150,000 miles, if you don't do it every 150,000 miles, the truck's not going to break down at 160,000 miles. It's just that the parts right around that mileage is when they get to a point where they should be replaced. So anyway, yeah, I'm finding out more and more that the previous owners didn't take care of the truck properly. But, you know, I've had the truck for 80,000 miles, 70,000 miles. It had like 465,000 miles, somewhere in that area when I got it. And it's got like 528,000 on it now. This is the first time they ever asked me about changing that air filter. And I was like, haven't you guys asked me about it before? And they were like, well, it's optional. He said, we're supposed to ask you about it, but sometimes we forget. So if you don't explicitly like ask for that part to be replaced, then they won't replace it. So I was like, well, this thing hasn't been changed a couple 100,000 miles. We need to replace it. So he took that one out, and it was pretty nasty. It was a pretty nasty air filter. And, you know, we got another one in. And they did not even start on the PM on the APU because they were troubleshooting an electrical issue with the APU. What the electrical issue was the Carrier APU has a generator. It's like a 6,000 watt generator. And it also has an alternator. All the alternator powers is basically the batteries. The generator powers the HVAC system. It's an electric HVAC system for the heat and air on the Carrier. Well, let me get back out of here and see if it stopped raining. Nope. Let's go back in here. Well, basically what was happening is everything that runs off the generator was not working, which is the HVAC system. And I had a little a message on the HVAC system that basically said it wasn't getting any power. The power was shut off. So I spent about 5 hours troubleshooting that, checking fuses, checking breakers, checking connections, that type of thing. and I couldn't get it figured out. The main way that you troubleshoot this issue is with a voltmeter. You go in and you just check, is it getting power here, here, here? You check all the places to see where it's not getting power. I didn't have a voltmeter on me, and I don't know how to properly use one. So I just put it in the shop. Well, the very first thing that Trey checked on it was the capacitor. And I forget what the capacitor is measured in. I want to say it starts with an F, like Faravolts or some. I don't know. I can't remember. It's some weird electrical measurement, and it's supposed to be over 40. And mine was reading 9. So they were like, well, your capacitor's bad. So they replaced the capacitor, and then everything started working. I'm sorry, I lost track. I saw a squirrel or something. Well, everything started working. I no longer had the little error that said that, I wasn't getting any power. When I pressed the AC button, the AC came on. It let me pick temperature and stuff like that. Everything appeared to be working, but I didn't fully test it. And he was like, well, we're at the end of the day now, and it's 5 o'clock, and now we're in overtime. So we're going to have to pick this up tomorrow. And I was like, all right. Man, it's not like, it's partly cloudy. I'm expecting this rain to stop at any moment. Well, he was like, we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to finish tomorrow. So I was like, damn it. So I went home, came back the next day, Friday. I was there early Friday morning, and they did the PM on the APU. And then after he finished with the PM on the APU, I turned the APU on and I started checking everything. And I wasn't getting any errors. Everything was working on the control panel, but nothing was actually working. The control panel thought everything was working, but nothing was actually working. The HVAC system wasn't actually coming on, and the outlet, the AC outlet that comes off the HVAC system through the generator was not working. So he went around and started checking everything with a voltmeter again and checking all kinds of stuff. It took him about 30 minutes or so, and then he finally found a fuse. The 12-volt fuse was blown out. He replaced that, and then everything started working great. So I got, like, to put that into some kind of context, that was like really awesome. For that particular issue with the APU, the cheapest fix for that is just resetting the 35 amp breaker. That costs nothing, unless you pay a mechanic to do that for you. But I'd already checked that 35 amp breaker. It's just a red button at the bottom of the APU you press in. That's the breaker for the generator, basically. The next cheapest thing would be a blown fuse, which fuses are really cheap. So that was one of mine things, was a blown fuse. So that's one of the cheapest fixes. And then the other thing that's pretty cheap is a capacitor. Those capacitors are only like $13, $15, somewhere in that. Well, I don't know how much they are today, because prices are just shooting through the roof on everything. Like, prices are crazy right now. Everything is jumping in price by like 20-30%. Some things are doubling, tripling in price. It's crazy. But anyway, that was about as cheap of a fix as you could possibly have for my issue. Replace the capacitor and replace a fuse. And my APU is back up and working great. And they did not tell me until Thursday that they would not do the overhead on my truck. It's an overhead valve adjustment. And if they would have told me up front that they were not going to do that overhead valve adjustment, I could have already been down here at the Volvo dealer and had them do it. But they waited 2.5 fucking weeks. And then the day that I'm in there for the PM, they say, yeah, we're not going to be able to do that because we would have to buy a shim kit for it. And that shim kit's like $250. And we don't do enough Volvos to justify getting that shim kit. So we would pass on the entire cost of that shim kit to you. And it would just make it to where it wouldn't be worth it for you to pay us to do the overhead. So I called the dealer as soon as they told me that. And the dealer told me it'd be $450 to do that overhead valve adjustment. And they don't do appointments. It's first come, first serve. So I was like, all right, I'll be there on Friday. And then, of course, I couldn't make it Friday because they didn't finish with my truck on Thursday. They didn't even start working on my damn truck until like after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That pissed me off, man. Schedule an appointment 2.5 weeks in advance. You get bumped a day, and then you get there, set all day long at the shop, and they don't even get around to me that day. After they roll it over into another day. That really upset me. But anyway, we've got pretty much everything done except the overhead valve adjustment. And there's another thing that I might maybe get done while I'm here at Volvo. And that is my NOx sensor. So I have a check engine light that I've had since I bought the truck. I've had a check engine light on the entire time since I bought the truck. And I've had this dealership take a look at it, and they said that my inlet and outlet sensor for my NOx need to be replaced. Those sensors are like $600 a piece, $500 to $600 a piece. And then they said it would be an hour of labor to change them out. So you're talking somewhere in the ballpark of $1,300 to replace those sensors, which is a lot better than last year. Last year when they quoted me for that bullshit, that was the same day that I went off on them and cussed them out and everything. They quoted me like $2,000 to replace that sensor. And I don't even think they were going to replace both of them back then. They were only going to replace like the inlet. So this place isn't as bad as it used to be. This place used to be really, really bad. They've gotten better. Maybe my really, really negative review and then cussing them out for half an hour to an hour made them like change some things that they were doing. I'll tell you right now, the service manager that I dealt with last time, I haven't seen him. Everybody else I dealt with, I've seen. I've dealt with all the same people this time that I dealt with last time, except the one guy that put my quote together. I haven't seen that guy, so maybe he got fired for inflating labor costs, because it was pretty insane, like the ridiculous quotes he was giving me. They were charging me like a full day of labor, like 8 hours of labor. I don't know if it's that much. They charge $165 an hour here. And he charged me like over $800 in labor in that quote to replace that sensor. But anyway, enough about that. I don't want to get pissed off thinking about that again. I was going to go ahead and get those sensors replaced. They have the inlet sensor in stock. They do not have the outlet sensor in stock. They said that they do have a shipment in back right now that they haven't processed, and there might be an outlet sensor in that shipment They said to come back and check in with them in a couple of hours to see if they received that that sensor in that shipment that they have. If they have the sensors, I'm going to go ahead and have them replace them and pay that, you know, $1,300 or whatever it is. But the overhead valve adjustment is going to cost me $450. And that is if all of my seals are good. If they run across any bad seals, because they have to take the top of the engine off to adjust the valves, and they have to do a few things to get to them to adjust them. And if the seals are in bad condition, they're supposed to inspect all the seals of everything that they're taking apart. And if they're bad, then they're supposed to replace them. So hopefully I don't have any bad seals that will increase the cost, because the dealer charges crazy money for these seals. Like just a simple piece of rubber, a little rubber seal, they might charge, you know, anywhere from $50 to $200 for something like that. But I'm gonna go back in there. It's 9:18, almost 9:19 a.m. right now. I'm going to go back in there at about 10 a.m. and talk with the parts department and ask them if they got that sensor in. I told the mechanic that's working on my truck, you know, the story of the sensors, and that I might also be having that done if, you know, they have that other sensor in stock. And he told me that they usually have everything checked in at around 10 a.m. So I'll go in there and, you know, see if we can get that done. But $450 for the overhead valve adjustment. The thing that takes a long time on the overhead is they have to let the engine cool until it gets down to ambient temperature. If they do the valve adjustment when the engine is hot, then they're not going to be adjusted properly. They have to wait until it's ambient temperature. So they have to let the engine set for between 2 and 5 hours. And it took them a long time to get me processed in this morning. And then they didn't have a single bay open. They didn't have any bays open. So they had to sit around and wait for the mechanics to show up at 8 a.m. I've been here since about 7 a.m. and they didn't get me into a bay until around, right before I started this video, somewhere around 8:30 a.m. is when I finally got into a bay. So they're probably not going to start the valve adjustment for another hour or longer, a minimum of another hour. That'll be 2 hours. It'll be between 1 and 3 hours from now. Or 1 and 4 hours. Yeah, between 1 and 4 hours from now is when they'll start the valve adjustment. And then it's going to take them a couple hours to do it. So I'm probably going to be here all day long up until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I did take my truck over to Blue Beacon before I came over here. Since they were going to be opening up the engine, I wanted the engine to be clean. I didn't want there to be a ton of dust everywhere. I wanted to reduce the risk of contaminants getting inside the engine. So I went over to Blue Beacon and got a truck wash, an undercarriage wash, and an engine wash. I can't remember the total cost on that. I think it was like $58. It was like $7 for the undercarriage and $10 for the engine. And then their base price is like $40 for a tractor. Blue Beacon is a little pricey. So yeah, somewhere in the area of $60. So I took it over to Blue Beacon, got the truck washed, then brought it over here. Once they finish with me here, I've got to drive to the other side of town where I pay to park the truck, and park the truck, hop back in my car, and go to the house. The only thing that I'm waiting on after this is done is I have a delivery. I switched internet providers. I shut down my cable service for internet, the local cable company here, Cox Communications. I shut that off whenever I got home on August 31st because they jumped, well, there's a lot of reasons. There's not just one reason, but I was on a promotional offer. I was going to cancel on them last year, and they offered me $90 or $85 a month. Their internet was $120 a month, and they offered to give it to me for $85 a month to get me to stay, and I was like, fine. Well, that offer expired, and my bill jumped up to $135 a month for internet. And I said, no, I'm not dealing with this bullshit anymore. You know, they offered $90 a month to get me to stay. And I was like, no, I don't want to have to call you guys and negotiate a rate every fucking 6 months to a year. I'm tired of this bullshit. You overcharge, you underdeliver. I'm done. So I canceled that service, and I ordered T-Mobile internet, and I'm still waiting on the cellular router from T-Mobile. T-Mobile said because of the supply chain issues, it's taking 1 to 3 weeks to get them shipped out. Well, we're at 3 weeks now. My ETA, according to T-Mobile, is tomorrow. September 21st is when the cellular router is supposed to arrive. So he's got a damn flat tire. I wonder if these things are for sale. All these look pretty much brand new. All these trailers I'm walking around, it's a whole bunch of like rock hauler, dirt hauler type stuff. They're all Ranco and Hicks, and they got dealer tags on them. So I think that these are trailers for sale. Does that one have a flat too? No, that one does not have a flat. That one I've been walking around has a flat. I'll show you. See how it's off the rim right there? I'm not gonna get my hands dirty by touching it. But the tire's like free floating off the rim. I don't know if you can see it. I'll put the camera up next to it. I don't know how well you can see it. But yeah, that's what's going on with me. Just hanging out here, getting a lot of preventative maintenance stuff done. I also talked with them about some other preventative maintenance stuff. Basically, the entire DEF system. There are 3 different preventative maintenance things that you're supposed to do for the DEF system. You know, filter cleaning and stuff like that. And the total cost to do all 3 of those was right around $1,000. So I think what I'll do is next time I come home, I'll get that done. I'm not trying to come in here and get like all the preventative maintenance done that the previous owner of the truck didn't do. You know, I don't want to come in here and have, you know, a $10,000 bill all at once. So I'm trying to stretch it out over time and get stuff done over time. But I'll eventually get this truck in tip-top shape. I mean, the truck runs great. I've had very few problems with the truck since I've owned it. Almost all of the issues I've had with this truck have been with the APU. I've spent over $20,000. I've only owned this truck for a little over a year. I bought it in June of 2020. It's now September. So it's been a year and a couple of months. And in the time I've owned it, I've spent over $20,000 on the APU. How much have I spent on the truck? Let me just think of the really big items I've spent on the truck. So I spent almost $5,000 getting the cab realigned and getting some leaf springs replaced because it was leaning to the left. So we'll say $5,000 right there. Those injector cups, I got those replaced at a dealer in Portland. That was $2,500, so that's $7,500. And I had a radiator hose blow out, but that only cost like $37 for the radiator hose. And I installed that myself, so that's not a big costly repair. I replaced the steer tires. That was like $1,200. So that's got me up $8,700 for the steer tires, the injector cups, and then the cab realignment. And the Goodyear dealer told me there was nothing wrong with those steers. They didn't need to be replaced. They still had tons of tread on them. It's just the dumbass that did my DOT inspection thought that he saw a spot on the side wall that was exposing the ply of the tire, but he couldn't find the spot again. He's like, I know it's there because I saw it that one time, but he could never find it again. He basically failed me on my DOT inspection and forced me to go replace my steers. That pissed me off. Cost me $1,200 unnecessarily. I can't think of any other major breakdowns I've had with the truck. I have, replaced the passenger side mirror because an antenna mount broke. That mirror cost me like $350. I also have done, I installed hood mirrors on it. That wasn't very expensive. That was like $120 for the mirrors. And then I paid like an hour of labor to have somebody install it, like $100. I can't think of any other breakdowns I've had that cost me money. So I've spent maybe $8,700 on the truck for breakdowns. That's not including preventative maintenance stuff. Like this $500 I'm about to spend for the overhead, or the roughly $350 to $400 I spend every time I get a PM done on the truck. So this isn't counting preventative maintenance. But yeah, the APU has been... Owning an APU is like owning a fucking boat. It's just a money pit. I love the APUs though. I'm going to switch and get away from Carrier on my next APU. I was talking with a guy in the shop on Friday, or no, it was Thursday that I was talking to him about it. He was the guy having that roof mount RV HVAC system installed on his Peterbilt, and he was telling me about Onan. He said almost all the trucks he owns are those custom sleeper trucks that have showers and kitchenettes in them and shit like that. He said that's the type of truck he usually has. But that's not what he had this particular time. And he said those custom sleeper trucks almost always have Onan generators. It's another form of APU. It's more expensive than Thermo King and Carrier. It's one of the most expensive APU options. But he said that they are way, way better than Thermo King or Carrier. He said that they're whisper quiet, they're extremely quiet. And He said it's his favorite generator he's ever had on the truck. So I'll look into it. He called one of his buddies that got a quote on one recently, and he was quoted $17,500 to install an Onan on his truck. Or Onan, however you pronounce it. O-N-A-N. Thermo Kings are running about 15 grand right now, and Carriers are up there around 13,000. Those are the numbers I'm hearing from people. Just last year, I was hearing numbers of like the off-brand green APU stuff was like 8,000. And Carrier was about 10, and Thermo King was about 12. Now I'm hearing that the off-brand shit is 12. Like green APU is like 12,000. And Carrier's like 13, and Thermo King's like 15. Those are the numbers I've been hearing lately. But anyway, I can't make this video last forever. I'm going to be sitting here all day long, but I'm not going to bore you with me rambling about random shit all day long. I could talk all damn day long, but I won't. I'm going to go back over here, and I've got about 30 more minutes until I'm going to check with the parts department and see if they got that other sensor in. And if they did, then I'm going to be spending an extra $1,300 here today. But yeah, after I get this done today, the only thing I have to do is wait around on that cellular router to arrive. I still don't have a tracking number for it. If I had a tracking number that told me exactly when it was going to get here, I would go ahead and start booking loads. But I don't want to, book a load without knowing exactly when I can leave. So as soon as I know when that router is coming in, I'll start booking loads, and I'll start doing meal prep, stuff like that. I'll start getting the truck ready to go. It'll still take me a couple of days to get rolling. Fridays are probably the best days of the week to get like good paying loads. Brokers and shippers start to get more desperate on Friday. They've been trying to move the load at cheap rates all week long, and nobody's biting on it. And then finally Friday starts rolling around, and they start coming up in price a little bit. So what I expect is going to happen is after I get all this shit done and I'm ready to leave, I'll end up booking a load on Friday that probably picks up on Monday or Tuesday. So I'll probably be at home until Monday or Tuesday of next week, but we'll see. Maybe there'll be an awesome load pop up on the board before then. But I'm going to go back over and sit on the bench and drink my other soda and just wait here all damn day long. Tons of fun. I'm really looking forward to my engine. I can't wait to see how my engine runs after this. That air filter was nasty. So just think about how nasty that air filter was. That's the engine, how it breathes. So the engine hasn't been able to breathe very well the entire time I've owned the truck. It's had that nasty clogged up air filter. So we got that replaced, and that should allow the engine to operate more efficiently. So it could be better fuel mileage, better horsepower by getting that nasty air filter out. And then these valves, when they're out of adjustment, which I think they're way out of adjustment, when they're out of adjustment, one of the symptoms is a ticking noise, like a tick, 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 tick. And I've been having a ticking noise since I bought the truck, and I didn't know what it was. And I finally found out about the valve adjustment and saw that one of the symptoms was a ticking noise. I was like, that's got to be it. So when the valves are out of adjustment, then the engine is not operating very efficiently. Everything's timing is a little bit off, and it's wasted horsepower. It's wasted fuel. So I'm really curious to see what kind of fuel mileage I'm going to get. after, you know, all this gets replaced, and how smooth the engine is going to run. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it runs after this, after that air filter, and then getting the valves properly adjusted. Looking forward to seeing what it's like. So it'll take me a while of doing, you know, fuel mileage testing and stuff like that to see if it makes a difference on fuel mileage. One of the things I'll be able to tell pretty quickly is how much fuel it uses at idle. These Volvo engines are supposed to be able to get like around a half a gallon per hour idle. That's almost as good as an APU. An APU uses between 0.15 and 0.35 gallons per hour, depending on like if it's at a high idle or not. If you're running your air conditioner, it's getting like 0.35 gallons per hour because it's getting up into a high idle. But my main engine, I get between 0.8 and 1.1 gallon per hour. It has a gallons per hour gauge on it. You can go into the fuel details and it'll show you how many gallons per hour it's burning at that moment. And my engine is between 0.8 and 1.1 gallons per hour. And that could potentially be because it's running at a higher RPM, because it's running inefficiently because of, you know, the air filter, or because the valves being out of adjustment. So I'll have to check and see what the gallon per hour burn is at idle, see if I see a noticeable difference in miles per gallon, and just see if I notice a difference in how it runs. It should definitely change how the engine sounds. It shouldn't have that ticking noise anymore. So yeah, I'm excited to get all this work done. And I'm looking forward to getting back out over the road. But anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap this up, and I'll head over there and chill out for a minute and then check with the parts department and see how much money I'm gonna blow today. And hopefully they have me out of here by about noon or 1 o'clock. I would love to get out of here by about noon or 1. It's gonna really suck if they keep me here until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I've got to drive across town in bad traffic, and then I've got to drive back across town again in bad traffic because I'm at the southwest corner of town. The place where I park the trucks is the southeast corner of town, and I live in the northwest corner of town. So I don't want to be driving around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon all over town. But yeah, that's what's going on with me. And I'll probably do another update video at some point once I get all this taken care of and I'm ready to hit the road. Maybe I'll wait and do a load board video, and I'll just update you with everything that went on with the shop and all this crap whenever I do the load board video. I have been talking with a couple of guys over the last few days about like how much the other owner operators are making. And I don't know if I want to get into that because that would be like a hour long rant. But there's a lot of people out here that misrepresent how much they make. I don't know if it's because of low self-esteem. You know, they're just embarrassed at how little they're making, or I don't know what it is. That's the only thing I can think of, is that it's just got to be low self-esteem. But I hear a lot of people talking some ridiculous numbers on how much they make, and I know they're lying about it. And I was talking with a couple of people at the shops here. I talk with people quite a bit out here when I'm waiting on stuff to get done. And I don't think they're making anywhere near what Landstar is paying. I'm pretty open about what I make over here at Landstar. And whenever I mention what I'm making, everybody else is like really quiet. They're like, yeah, I make about that much. And then they don't want to talk about it anymore. So I don't think they're making that much because what I'm generally running at is $3 to $4 a mile. That's what I'm making after all the percentage cuts, gross to the truck. You know, I'm hauling $5, $6 a mile loads, $4.35 a mile loads, things like that. But you know, I try to explain to people that I'm the type of person, I'll sit around and wait a couple of days for a good load. I won't just take whatever's sitting there. If I was taking whatever was sitting there, then I'd be running it probably $2.50 to $3 a mile on average, instead of $3 to $4 a mile on average. But yeah, the guy that runs the trucking company over where I pay to park the truck was in there talking with us for a long time about, you know, hey, do you have any idea why I can't get any drivers to work for me? He's like, I'm having a hell of a time recruiting drivers. What is it that you guys are looking for whenever you lease on somewhere? And I didn't even answer his question. I'm like, I don't even want to talk to you. like they've tried to recruit me several times to lease on with them, but you know, it comes down to everything. There's not a simple answer to that question. You should be looking at everything on a lease. Whenever you're going to contract with somebody, you should be looking at everything. What are your insurance costs? What are all of your costs? And what's your revenue? Just, you know, knowing that you're getting a percentage, 65%, 80%, 90%, that doesn't mean shit. You need to know how much the actual loads pay if you're getting percentage. You need to look at their load board and see what their loads are like. Because I would rather get 50% of $10,000 a load than 100% of $1,000 a load. There's a lot of people out here that haul cheap freight, heavy freight. They go to shitty customers. Anyway, we're getting off topic. We're getting into another discussion. But I'm going to go over here and probably chat it up with some more drivers for the rest of the day. But thanks for watching. Have a good one. I hope you're having a great week, and I hope you're not dumping a whole bunch of money on your truck. All right. Have a good one. Bye.